guys, thank you very much for coming today, and I'm sure you're all gagging to hear what Leslie has to say and how he's responding to some questions you've been asking. But also we've got this Google, how do you say it again, Leslie? How does a thicko like me say it? Is it disavow tool?
Yeah, it's disavow. Yeah, that's right.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I'd say only PhD students would, or ex-PhD students would come up with a term disavow tool. I mean, come on. Make it easy for people. Make it easy. So we've welcomed Leslie today to come on behalf of him and Dan Thies to present the answers to these questions and also to get busy educating us on his opinions, on your opinions, Leslie, on this latest twist from Google with the disavow tool, because I know there's plenty of people on this call today, me included, who got really sparked out by Google, and I got some penalties on some of my sites and some penalty notices and stuff, and it's been a really turbulent time for people. So really looking forward to this. So head off with it, Leslie. Let's move.
All right. Well, let's do that then. And so, yeah, I was going to actually wait until the end to talk about disavow, because that's kind of the newest thing, and so the questions got stuck into this presentation in the order that more or less the order that Kenny sent them to me. But so there's a bunch of stuff to cover today, and because there were about 20 questions by the time Kenny and I did a call together. That was just last week. Time flies when you're having so much fun. And so there are about 20 questions left over, and the way things normally go, there are about 25 answers to those 20 questions. But then you'll actually find that there's really only one answer to all of these things. They're almost like presenting symptoms. And so it's like, oh, gee, my arms are flabby. Oh, my chest muscles aren't very good. And, oh, I've got too much around the middle. And the one answer to all those questions is get more exercise and eat less, right? And so you'll find that in SEO, a lot of those things happen as well. And then at the end, we'll also go to chat because, as I give you those 25 answers, it'll probably spark, probably 20 more questions. And so we'll go ahead and I'll stay as long as you folks can do it because...
And if you could speak up somewhat, Leslie, a few people are saying that you're a little bit quiet there, so if you could get closer to your mic, that'd be great.
Let me see. How's that? Is that a little bit better?
That's better. Is that better for everyone?
Is that good for you?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, mic positioning, boy, I tell you. And the problem is, unlike recording, recording content, I can't see, waveform on the recorder because I've got the screen taken up with PowerPoint. Okay, well, hopefully with all the technical details, you're absolutely right, Kenny, that this has been a very turbulent time, and there's been incredible pain and agony and angst out there in the marketplace. And so hopefully I can allay some of some of the fears and correct some of the problems and misconceptions and get people on a path moving forward. Because in almost all cases when I read these questions, I go, yep, seen that one before, and yep, I know what's going on there. And so what I'm trying to do is not just answer your question, but get you on track and give you a solution so that question ceases to be a problem for you. Because mostly people don't ask questions that aren't problems. They don't say, damn, how should I spend all that extra cash I've got? That's not really a problem. People don't ever have that question. So at least I've never gotten it in about 10 years of doing this. So the questions that you've answered so far, and if I'm talking fast, it's because I'm that kind of guy. Kenny will tell you that. But the other thing is, there's a whole bunch to do, and I don't think you probably have all day. And so I want to make sure that I get as much information through this. And we are recording this. I think we're recording it. Maybe you need to press the record button. We don't have Andrea in the background here as we normally do.
Yeah, I've already done that.
Excellent. And recording is a great thing because then you can slow me down, which is always great. So here, the way that the questions kind of sort out, in terms of the stuff that people ask about. So the first thing is tactical low-level stuff, and those are issues. Absolutely, you run into those kind of things. But a lot of times I'll show you just to kind of move forward just a bit, kind of jump ahead, is that usually those are strategy problems that actually lead to those low-level questions. But we'll answer those and then show you where the real question should be. Then the TLD, which stands for top-level domains. So we're talking about the Google.com and .co.uk and .au and .de and et cetera, right? And particularly in this day and age, it's become much more important. I mean, back in the old days when the web was not the web and the internet was not the internet, it was actually DARPANet. It was only this U.S. invention to talk between defense contractors, and then it became the internet, and then it became the World Wide Web because a bunch of Swiss scientists came up with a way to share scientific documents with each other. Okay, that was a long time ago, but in inner years. But the thing is, and now, the global marketplace is expanding actually more rapidly, by the way, than the U.S. marketplace. And so now the whole question about, well, how do I rank in the .de or the .es as opposed to the .com version of Google? That's now become a very important question. So we'll talk about that. Ranking factors and best practices, particularly after the black and white beasts, right? And everybody knows, probably on this call, because you have a fairly technical audience, Kenny, about pandas, penguins, and, oh, by the way, the many unnamed animals that came in under cover of fur, because they didn't name everything that's changed over the last 18 months, and some of it, frankly, they moved in under shadow of pandas and penguins. And then, like social marketing and content quality questions and all that. And then finally, I would bet, show of hands, there's probably about 30% of the people on this call, give or take, maybe more, that actually know they have penalties. Over the last 6 months or more, that's pretty much how it runs, is anywhere between a low of a quarter and a high of a half of the people on these webinars with me have penalties. And so you want to know what to do about that, how to get out of it. And then finally, as it was just announced, as we record this, it's only 2 days old, the whole disavow. And so we'll talk about that. But you're wondering, who the hell am I? Well, first of all, you could Google me. Whoa, who knew, right? And even if you misspell my last name, it'll correct it for you. I'm just that important. But to just kind of cap off that conversation, I discovered the importance of link text back in 2002, and I invented what's now called PageRank sculpting back in 2003. Since then, I've done a whole bunch of important stuff, in my opinion, more important, and my customers think so too, that doesn't have nearly as much reach as those early innovations that I was responsible for. I'm also partnered with Dan Thies, who's also as well known as I am, and also has a weird last name. So if you misspell it, Google will correct you. Dan is responsible for some of the very first best keyword strategies in the marketplace, and is also the inventor and creator of a process we teach, which we'll get to today. So anyway, I invite you to go, if you don't know who I am, well, gosh, I don't know, sucks for you, but you can go find out. So why don't we get into your questions and just let that be the proof of the pudding. So first there's this technical stuff, like what is your opinion of SERP IQ? Well, I've never actually used it. I don't use a whole lot of these kind of tools. But in a nutshell, what SERP IQ does, it gives you a whole bunch of ranking factor analysis stuff, or at least what they would like to believe is ranking factor analysis stuff, and the problem there is twofold. First is most of that, or at least a large percentage of it, is not actually actionable information. It's not actually part of the algorithm. And so can that be useful? It can be useful as long as you know specifically how to interpret it. However, in most cases, people are using that tool, those kind of tools, and nothing wrong with this particular one compared to the others, is that they don't understand that. And so they're misusing the tool. They're letting that tool guide behavior that they should not let them guide. And so I'm not a big fan of those. The other thing that does, of course, is rank checking. It checks where you're positioned. Problems with that, and we'll talk about that toward the end of the presentation. Kind of the biggest question of them all is, what do I expect to see at Google in 12 months from now? The problem with rank checking these days is whose rank, when, where. That's the problem. Rank is so personalized and geo-targeted today that rank checking has become a kind of a guess and by golly. You really can't say what your current rank is, frankly. So I have nothing against those tools, but the processes that Dan and I teach that we'll cover today, frankly, we don't need that stuff. That's not how we teach you to guide your business. And when you ask the right questions, when you are actually guiding your business the right way, you'll find out that you don't really need that. So even if you have it, you'll probably quit using it. Can I recommend a good server-side web analytics program? The answer is no, which is not a very useful answer. However, it is true. The useful part of that is, why would you want to do that server-side? Now, people are asking this question for a couple different reasons, primary different reasons. The first reason is they somehow don't trust Google Analytics, and they think that Google is snooping on them with Google Analytics. That's not crazy, but it is paranoid. If you decide that paranoia is a form of mental illness, then I guess it is crazy, but I don't think so. Paranoia is just a lack of proper information. And so in this particular case, Google Analytics, Webmaster Tools, and AdWords, they get kind of thrown under the bus that somehow that Google is Big Brother and that they're watching over you and they're somehow going to use that data against you. Well, why do you think that? I mean, first of all, frankly, you're just not that important. You're just not that big a deal. Google really doesn't give a crap about you. You're just, it's not like you're Yahoo. Come on, give a break here. The other thing that's going on is that if you're doing anything wrong, well, just don't do that, right? If you're doing something that you would be afraid of Google finding out, that's your real problem, not whether or not Google could find out, even if they, by the way, cared. So no, we use Google Analytics and Webmaster Tools and AdWords. And if you don't have Google Analytics and Webmaster Tools, Google Webmaster Tools, set up on your site, and you ask me to fix something for you, basically I'll tell you no, because I can't. I don't have enough information. You need to have those two things installed. Yeah, go ahead.
We've got a few questions coming in, and I think if we can answer them whilst you're hot on the topics, then that'd be good. Mm-hmm. So someone's just come in and said, what do you think, Harry has come in and said, what do you think of link research tools? Do you think it's the same as SERPIQ?
Well, link research tools have their place depending on what you're trying to do with them. And so, and actually there's kind of a question about this later on about backlink recommendations. However, link analysis tools are, in this day and age, somewhat indispensable, I would say, when it comes to getting out of a penalty, and we'll talk about that when we get to penalties a little bit later. However, if you're using them for the purposes of, I'm going to reverse engineer my competitor's backlinking strategy, and I'm going to go get backlinks from the same place they did, stop there. And again, that kind of foreshadows another area, which is about link building in general. But I mean, I'm the one who basically invented reverse engineering your competitor's backlink strategy when I released OptiLink in 2002. That's what it was for. Today, to this day and age, I recommend people do not use OptiLink, and it's my own damn tool. So I would recommend that you make sure that you understand why are you using link analysis tools. If you're doing it in order to try to overcome a penalty, that's a good thing. If you're doing anything else with it, then I'll tell you here in a few minutes why you shouldn't be doing that.
Okay, great. Just one more. You might move on to this later on, but Tim's just come in and said, what should I do with all my exact match domains that got killed recently by the EMD update?
Right. Okay. Well, if you keying off of the word bunch, that's a problem. If you have a quote-unquote bunch of domains, yeah, you probably ought to just let them die or sell them off in a flipper or something. Because the multi-domain strategy, which again, I was one of the progenitors of that back in the day with the dynamic linking and Revenge of the Mininets, the product from Michael Campbell, and that used to work wonders. Now it's a recipe for disaster. And so, yes, can you make an exact match domain work? Yes, but the fact of the matter is, one real business beats 100 pretend businesses in the current environment. And so the people who are doing, and we'll talk about more about this in a little while, but the whole 100 domain strategy and those kind of things, they always work because of a loophole. And what I'm going to show you is to stop chasing loopholes and try to actually key off a reality in the right way. Because the loopholes have largely been closed. They've been at least a lot tighter. Yes, are there still people slipping through the loopholes? Yes, there are. But that's not a very good long-term strategy. It's what I refer to as digging a hole in water. If you dig fast enough, you can actually make a depression in water. But it's a lot of work, and if you even slow down, what happens is the water comes in and you drown. Mm-hmm. So, and the deeper the hole is, the worse it is. So, yeah, we'll talk about both of those a little bit more later.
Yeah, there's just one more coming from Ian. Yep. Mm-hmm. He said, we've tried many SEO tools and often often the local versions get our IP blocked by Google. There are many companies now selling ranking tools that are server cloud operated. Do you think Google will see who uses these tools and hit a penalty? We have not used them, as this puts our clients' data somewhere we do not control.
Yeah, and again, I mean, you're asking these are actually the wrong questions, fundamentally. And so, Lynn, why don't we move on? We'll get to what the right question is. We'll kind of loop back on that. But I mean, the reason it's the wrong question is because they're trying to do ranking analysis at all. And my unwritten book is your number one ranking doesn't matter, and it really doesn't. Of course, the book is about why it doesn't and what you do instead. But if you're doing rank checking at all, you need to really look carefully at what I have to teach today and ask reevaluate that as whether you should even be looking at it. I have clients and I have websites of my own, and we have hundreds of customers in SEO Brain Trust, and we do zero rank checking. Okay, let's talk about talking about ranking, let's talk about what I call the geo-Googles. And so those would be the different top-level domains, the .de and the .es, and this is a real problem today. It didn't used to be because, the web was, frankly, kind of U.S.-centric. But now it's a big question. How do the results differ between the top-level Googles? And there are two different ways that this question was phrased and was sent in to you from readers. So the first was, so I'm in the UK, and I go out to google.com versus google.co.uk. And it differs. Why does that differ? And then the other thing is if I want to rank in .es instead of .de and I've got a .com right? All of those kinds of problems. And so first of all, the results differ remarkably different. On different keyword phrases, you can find that you might not rank at all in the U.S., but you do in Britain or vice versa. Why? You see, because here's some things we do know. They use precisely the same index pushed to all data centers worldwide. That's the first thing. That's interesting. So they use exactly the same data and serve up wildly different results depending upon what domain you're at. And the one that should be on this slide. The other thing that's kind of interesting is all spidering is done from U.S. IPs. All right, so that the Google bot only ever comes from the U.S. They don't do any spidering from the data centers that are distributed around the world. The data centers that are distributed around the world are serving up search results, but they are doing no spidering. Isn't that interesting? So what the heck is going on? If they're using the same damn index, spider from the same place, well, it's the weighting factors. And so what are the weighting factors? What are they doing differently? And so the first thing to understand is that everything you do has to affect all the different Googles because it's all in the same index. It's just that obviously whatever the stuff you do affects those different TLDs differently. All right, so does that make sense? So it's like if you're doing quote-unquote link building, if you're creating content on your blog, if you're doing whatever you're doing, guest blogging for someone else, that actually affects your rankings across all of the different Googles. It's just that how it affects it depends upon a bunch of different weighting factors. Well, what are those weighting factors? What are the influences that affect the ranking in these different geo-Googles? And it's not an industry term. I just thought it sounded cool. Well, first of all, your top-level domain. And by the way, the link at the bottom is Google's own documentation on this. They're not silent on this. They've said specifically the kind of the big rocks. Are there littler rocks, sand-sized grains that they haven't talked about? Could be, but who really cares about that? I mean, if you get the big things right, the rest of them will take care of themselves. So the very first thing is, yes, they expect a .co.uk domain to be about UK. Well, why is that? Well, it's because the registrars require it that way anyway. I mean, living in the United States, I cannot go register a .es domain. I have to actually form a presence in some way or get somebody to do it for me to actually have a .es. Now, you find a lot of American-owned companies have TLDs, which are not U.S., and that's because they've gone to somebody to buy it for them, is what it boils down to. And so, like Deliver.it, DLVR.it, they had somebody, a representative in Spain, buy that. Italy, buy that for them. Then there's the .co, which is, what is that? That's not Colombia. It's somewhere else, or maybe it is Colombia. I don't remember. But that's very popular, and again, it's because they register. They just, the country figured out, just like it's just like forming a company in the the Virgin Islands or something. It's a revenue source for them, and so you'll find some top level domains you can get, the country domain you can get no matter where you are in the world, and that's just because the agreement that the country has with the official registrar. The other thing that they specifically called out is address and contact information. Now, this is something that Dan and I have been studying. We see more and more and more, and I won't say provably, but has very, very, very high likelihood that it exists in the Penguin algorithm, possibly Panda as well, but that's a little bit less clear. So when you have contact data on your page, essentially they have filters, text analysis filters that can pick out that, that looks like a phone number, that appears to be an address, and that is a quality signal that's used in scoring websites. That's also called out specifically in that URL at google.com as a signal that they use to differentiate what country should be found in. Links are very likely a criteria, and so this is, the tar baby effect, where even if you're at .com, but you're heavily linked from, .de websites, then they're going to associate you more thoroughly with Germany, and you would rank better as a result. Server IP is specifically mentioned as one of the questions that we got. The address or the IP address of your server where your site is served off of is only as slightly important, is used more or less as a last resort. And so don't worry about that. That's one of those small rocks. And yes, if you have a .com, no linking from the UK, and you're served in New Jersey, you're going to have a problem. You're going to have a disadvantage ranking in the UK. But what should you do to correct that? Just moving your server to London is working the tail end of that animal. You really ought to be thinking about a .co.uk TLD instead. That would be a better approach. Or make the address and your phone number in international format prominent on your website. Things of that nature are going to be more meaningful than your server IP. So for those of you who are operating internationally, you could still use, Amazon's data center in the East Coast of the United States, which probably costs you less, by the way, than a lot of other solutions around the world, and still do just fine in your local version of Google. And that's a pretty big topic. So if anyone has more information about that, I'm about to move on. It needs more information about it. I'm about to move on. But again, the information here that Google has already published is actually very, very beneficial, frankly. So.
Yeah, there's a question that's come in from John on that, and he said, so if I have got a domain and it's a .com domain, and I'm trying to rank in the UK, and I still seem to be getting a lot of traffic from America. Let me just read this. Should I buy a .co.uk domain and just transfer everything over and redirect all the URLs?
Well, it depends, and actually there's a question later on about duplicate content on translated sites, and so that may be a part of the question as well. But so if you're trying to rank in both Great Britain and their largest colony, trying to maintain rapport with the questioner, then yeah, you might actually look at doing both the .com and the .co.uk, and that can be made to work. The other way, on the other hand, if you'd rather just focus on the UK, then yeah, getting a .co.uk and then canonicalizing and redirecting using the process that Dan and I teach for a safe site move, that would be the way. That would be the way to go instead, and just move off the .com over time. Now you could leave the .com registered and redirected to the .uk like forever. It may very well be that you continue to rank very well in America, even with that change. Again, because if you are ranking there now, yeah, you are going to create these signals, emphasize these signals that you belong in the UK, but it may very well be that you're still strong enough in the U.S. to continue to rank there.
Yeah, okay. Some more questions coming through. Is it all right if we just run through them?
Sure, go for it.
D Chang has just said the URL isn't working. That you put there, the Google URL. Information not found. So anyway, they can just search on that.
Yeah, I forget exactly how I searched it. That was, I don't remember, actually, how I found that.
Okay, well, we can send it to them, can't we?
Yeah, we'll figure that out. We'll
figure it out. We'll get someone to look at it whilst we're on the call, and we'll put it up at the end. This is a question that you're probably coming on to. What is more beneficial? This is from Matt Fields. What is more beneficial, changing our backlink profile, deleting old poor backlinks, or building new quality backlinks? What about .gov.edu backlinks? How much do they really matter?
Yeah, let's move those forward to that subject. I mean, only the GeoGoogle stuff now, and then let's get those as we get to that subject.
Yeah, okay. And Shiraji, as rightly said, there is a data center in the EU. I think it might be an island, actually.
Oh yeah, no, there's actually
an Amazon data center. We've got some domains.
Yes,
on that.
an Amazon. Yeah, there is an Amazon data. Yeah, I was just using that as an example in terms of where you host, and certainly Amazon has presence in the EU. You're absolutely right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Someone here, Joshua, is saying, what's the best way to get a local US address without a PO box? Well, the way you can do that is you can get a virtual office address, but you might know of other ways. Leslie, but you can get virtual offices. So me, for example, I live in the UK, but I can have a virtual office pretty much anywhere in America. I just pay a small monthly fee, and they will forward any post onto me.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, it's not hard at all, actually. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me just run through some of these. Sorry, they're coming in quite through. Shiraji, again, would it be better to simply buy UK hosting for the UK, or is it better to buy the .co.uk? I think you've covered that, haven't you?
I covered that, yeah. I mean, the server IP is a minor factor. It doesn't matter. Just go wherever you want to go, wherever you get the best service and price.
Yeah, okay. Let's see. I'm in Toronto, Canada. So for my client sites, I've always said to have the site sitting on a .ca. We may own the .com, but forward it to. Does that make sense? Yes, it does make sense. Let me just have a little look. Since we are halfway through our time, can we move past and get onto the disavow impact?
Let's try to do that. I mean, a lot of these questions I will probably answer.
Yeah. Well, what I'll do is I'll go through the questions, Leslie, and those that you haven't answered at the end, we can go through them at the end.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, that's much better.
Great. Let's get the flow going. Keep it flowing, guys, and I'll ask them at the end.
There were a bunch of related questions about algorithms. So here's one. What is the percentage of value to SEO these days between different ranking factors? We talked about this on the phone call, I believe, as well. But link text and page rank are still the biggest factors in ranking. The on-page factors of title tag and, keywords on the page, stuff like that is a minor factor. The problem today, the difference today, because that ranking algorithm is basically unchanged. The difference is the filters. And so the filters, basically, if you can get through the filters, the ranking algorithm is the same. It's the filters that are the problem. And so now what we recommend is that only about 10% of your links actually have your keywords in it, and that you do not mention your keywords on your pages, your key phrases on your pages more than twice. You should make sure that when you read it, it sounds like you're talking to a person. My favorite example is vacation rentals. Once you have a vacation rental, you'll find out how much you like your vacation rental, and you'll use your vacation rental all the time. Nobody talks that way. Instead you would say, once you have a vacation rental, you'll see how many times per year you use it, and you'll understand why other people like them too. There, I've used my key phrase exactly one time. Right, so that's more natural, right, for humans. We'll cover this a little bit more later. Most of the penalties we see from Penguin are because of keyword stuffing on the page. Most of the things we see from Panda are because of link networks, so-called blog networks or splogs, and keyword stuffing in external links. Any SEO advice for our e-commerce sites? Two big things for e-commerce sites. One is the product descriptions. Product descriptions are a big problem now. This was always an issue. It's now a big issue. So you need to rewrite your product descriptions. Don't take what the vendor gave you and 1,000 of your competitors, and don't just post that on your website. You want to make sure that you have rewritten your product descriptions. Now, I understand if you have 1,000 products, okay, that's like a business-ending event to have to rewrite 1,000 of them. So you have to do it in some kind of order. There's several different ways to go about doing that. I can't answer on a case-by-case basis on this call, but in general, you'd want to go after the most important ones to you, financially. Make sure that your best-selling products or highest-margin products or whatever, that you rewrite those first. But over time, what you really want to do is you want to rewrite all the product descriptions that you're putting up on your site. That's the kind of the biggest item. The second biggest item is all of the on-page factors that we talk about with respect to Panda. I invite everybody to look up the Red Pen test at SEObraintrust.com. You can probably just find it by searching for the Red Pen test, and take the Red Pen test on your website. This is a little trick that Dan Thies invented to define where you're overusing keywords on the page. And oftentimes what we find e-commerce store owners do is they have 1,000 products in kind of their shopping cart, if you will, and then they have a blog attached to their website, and they keyword stuff the hell out of all the text. That will absolutely get you under a Penguin penalty. So take the Red Pen test. That would be the two things I would say: product descriptions, or Red Pen test, that every e-commerce store owner ought to do. Does Google prefer brands, and how do I influence that? Now, this is another one we talked a little bit about on the call. However, first of all, it's a misnomer to say that Google actually prefers brands. Brands is really about authority. It's about the total footprint you have on the web in terms of the total amount of content you have and the total page rank and authority that you've constructed. The challenge today is you've got to get that content through the filters, which is a much more difficult task today than it ever has been. They actually really want you to have unique, high-value content intended for humans only. And the way you go about doing that is to actually kind of almost turn SEO on its head, and we'll talk about the exact process for doing that here in a few minutes. But you are a brand. That's the other message you need to understand. Brand does not mean that you have to be a Fortune 500 company in the U.S. to do it. Everyone is a brand. Anyone who is differentiated from the other people in their marketplace, that is your brand. Kenny has a brand. I have a brand. It's who we are. It's how we interact with people in our marketplace. That's what makes a brand. And so that unique selling proposition, or that unique marketing proposition almost, is your brand. And so does Google give higher rankings to ExxonMobil as opposed to someone else? No. The only reason they get higher ranked is because they have higher presence on the Internet. They have more content that's gotten into the index through the filters. If you can do that too, you can outrank anybody. Yes, you can outrank CNN. So that kind of gets us to SEO best practices. And there's lots of questions about this that are all kind of related together. What are the 5 best practices to get top ranking Google? That's kind of like the mother question of them all here. And we'll talk about those. I don't think they're 5, frankly. I think it's fewer than 5. But, to kind of from the top down is, and maybe what we really ought to do is just realize this labels the section and just move on. But the answer to this question is really a question about how do I do marketing online. That's really what this question is about. The 5 best practices for top ranking in Google. That sounds like an SEO question. And really, if you had asked me that 4 years ago, yes, I would have given you a very SEO-centric answer. Today, the answer is completely different because Google has changed. In the insides of Google, the ivory tower of Google has not changed, but they've erected walls around it you have to get through. And because of those walls, kind of the composite algorithm, the composite of what Google looks like today, is a very different beast than it was 4 years ago. So the best practices for top ranking in Google are now actually marketing best practices. The new SEO is actually marketing. All that kind of foreshadows what I'll be talking about in a little bit. Any up-to-date advice on backlinking strategy? Yes, don't. If you are thinking about linking, then you have missed the new Google. And there is a way to get the actual natural links that Google said they always wanted and actually do it naturally. Back in the old days, let's talk about the old days and the new days for a moment. Back in the old days, it was only geeks like me and Kenny that could actually get links, right? Because you had to have a website. You had to know how to use not even PHP, hell, it was Perl and CGI. And you had to know how to code HTML 1.0. In order to get a link to your website, you had to get another geek to code an A tag, href equal mywebsite.com, into their web page. It was only geeks that controlled the internet. There was no quote-unquote natural links. I mean, if you think a geek linking to you is natural, I got news. I'm a geek. I know it's different, right? So what was really going on is that there were the haves and the have-nots on the web. Visitors on the web were sitting there in front of TV stations run by geeks. And yeah, some of those geeks were hired by real companies, and real companies were using them to run their own own web property. But the fact is, it was a broadcast model. There were geeks broadcasting, and there were visitors sitting there consuming. That's not the way it is today. Geeks have lost control of the internet. Visitors control the internet, because now the high school class at a local middle school will accidentally, with their mobile phones, create more links in just a weekend than most webmasters could create all year. And it's because visitors now have the ability, in almost all cases, to create some reference on the web, which ends up becoming a searchable link, an indexable link. And it's because of the advent of social media and basically zero-tech platforms for creating web properties. And you trace this all back to the advent of the blog, right? That was the beginning of the social revolution, was the blog, where a person who did not know CGI, doesn't even know what it stands for, could create a web property and have their own voice broadcast on the internet. As soon as visitors became broadcasters, boom, geeks lost control of the web. So what is your up-to-date backlinking strategy today? Get visitors to link to you accidentally. You have to engage your marketplace in a conversation. Oops, I'm going way ahead of my slide deck here. And they will link to you. And those are the quote-unquote natural links that the whole theory of Google was always based on. It's just that now practice has finally, after 10 years, caught up with theory. We'll get more to that in a minute. Can a siloed site be too tightly structured? This is one of those deep, detailed questions, which is actually the wrong question. What you should be doing is you should build your website for human consumption, and then there are a few details. For large websites only, and today I would say large website is 10,000 pages or more, where I would go in and I would show you, no, change this and change that in terms of spider sensible navigation, and that's what we call page rank sculpting. But it's only for 10,000 page websites and above. If you're below that, you should not be even thinking about siloed or not siloed. You should be thinking about what is the human experience of my website. What links make sense on this page for humans only, and what should the link text say? If you're thinking about it in SEO terms, you will think yourself into a penalty in the vast majority of cases. And I can show you some examples if anybody wants to see them. We don't want Google to be our single source of traffic. That's true. This is a risk. You are absolutely right. You should absolutely here's the thing. If Google is 80% of your traffic, then basically you only own 20% of your business, right? If you think about it, you basically are a mortgage holder. It's like when you have a $100,000 house and you have an $80,000 mortgage, that means you really only have $20,000 in equity. The same kind of thing is the case with Google. If so much of your traffic is from Google, then it could be taken away. I mean, they're basically, they hold your mortgage, and so that's not a good place to be. Although it's an okay place to be as long as you've done exactly the right thing, as long as you haven't put yourself in what I would call a high-risk category. That said, I still don't recommend it. Dan and I try to get people to kind of change the size of the slice of pie to where it's like 50%. That's probably a rational place to be. The problem is what we teach works so well that what's going to happen is the whole pie is going to get larger, but you may actually find that your referral traffic and your social source traffic still doesn't really catch up. Now, if you do it right and you're tracking everything, then you should also get lots and lots of direct traffic from doing like email marketing and even direct mail or offline marketing as well. And so if you build all of those different channels effectively, you should actually be down at like a third would be a good place to be. As long as whatever the number is, it's not a company ending event to lose it or get it cut in half, then it's okay. But it's just most people are in a position where it would be a company ending event to have it taken away. And that kind of segues a little bit to social strategies. Has social displaced RSS? Absolutely not. In fact, a lot of the social infrastructure, the ecosystem, still runs on RSS. RSS is actually pretty vitally important with respect to how blogs work and how the blog discovery process happens. And so absolutely you want to make sure that everything that you do is RSS enabled. Now, that said, I don't want to see stupid stuff. I don't want to see an e-commerce site invent an RSS feed for their products. That's just goofy. That's spamming. RSS has a place. It has a place in primarily for things which are quote-unquote news. Now, news doesn't mean late-breaking story, right? It's where there's a sequence of content, and so it's perfect for blogs. It's what it's originally built for, and it's still its highest and best use. It's also, however, kind of the plumbing that occurs between all of the social properties, so Facebook and Twitter and all of these things create RSS feeds, which are then reconsumed in other sorts of venues. By the way, that's how it's through RSS that causes deep underneath the machine where you don't see it. That's what causes non-followed links to become followed and indexed. And so, the analogy I use is when you turn on a faucet, do you have any idea the plumbing that went into making water come out? Or when you flip a light switch, do you have any idea the amount of wire and where that actually ends up going and the infrastructure associated with getting lights to come on? Well, that's what's happening underneath all of our web properties in the social ecosystem, where Twitter is all no-followed, and mobile Twitter is now not actually directly indexed by Google. But all of that stuff gets remunged and repurposed in other kinds of websites, like, for example, paper.li, and those get spidered and indexed. And so things that happen in the social sphere on Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and all those other properties, all of that, or a large part of it, not all of it, some of it is behind passwords, but large portions of that end up getting indexed and having direct ranking, tertiary ranking influence. So absolutely not. Social has not displaced RSS. Social actually stands on the heads and shoulders of RSS. How do you scale up a social media campaign? This is one of those huge questions, because people when they start out with social media, they get a little bit of an initial bump from it, but then they realize it's consuming all of their time, and the ROI is just not there to do that. You have to use tools in just the right way. Now, you can't do robo following and unfollowing and stuff like that, so you have to know where to apply automation and exactly how. So we use Buffer App and Hootsuite, some other tools like that we teach. We teach how to buffer some portion of your time every week or every other week, and then the portion of that has to be done daily, and it should only take you about 10 minutes a day, and then you should shut that damn thing off and not look at it, because otherwise you will be sucked into it like a black hole. You will never come out of social media once you really scale it up to where you have lots going on. It will rule your life. And so you have to make sure that you understand where the boundaries are in that regard, but where's the best ROI? How do you actually compose your activities so that you can batch the part that can be batched and do only that small high-value component that has to be done daily. And that's one of the things that we teach. We'll get to that in a little while, but it is a real issue. It is a real issue, and you've got to not let it suck you in. There are a bunch of content quality questions people have. YouTube, yeah, and the question was you can get almost anything ranked on YouTube. You're absolutely right, you can. Part of the problem with the whole question of quality of content on YouTube is that machines can't know that. Now, they could use human graders or something like that. It's just that the value proposition's not there. And so what I think the future in terms of that is that there's probably no change for quite some time, because it's not a problem. One of the very first things I do in analyzing these is to follow the money. And if you follow the money on YouTube, the stupid stuff actually gets more views and gets more clicks on paid links than the serious stuff. So why the hell would they want to get rid of the stupid stuff, right? I mean, you can put the most serious stuff in the world up on YouTube, and it's really actually even hard to qualify for the paid program to share in the ad revenue. But you can put stupid home videos or videos of planking. Really, planking? So anyway, let me start on that. Those things will get lots and lots of views. So this is, it's going to continue. And at the same time, what is YouTube's influence on quote-unquote real SEO, SEO for business? It comes and goes. It used to be very easy to get videos to rank for almost any search result. That's not so much anymore. They've removed some of that I would call artificial lift. And so I think that they're probably at a stable point where it doesn't change for a while. I'm saying 2 years. Quality guidelines for curated content. Yes, and the subtext for this question, which was about a paragraph long, indicated that this person was using curated in a different way that Dan and I use it. Dan and I specifically step away from the term curated, and we use the word abstract, as we'll talk about in a few minutes. An abstract is a summary, a description of what's at the source article. So the source article would be about something, and I'd write a short blurb about, well, this author concludes that this is what's going on. I'm not sure I agree with them or not, but it's an interesting analysis. Here's the source. All right. See, I didn't quote anything from the source, and that's an important difference. What this individual said was, well, if I have a quote and then I have a lead-in paragraph and an outro paragraph, it's like, well, wait a minute. Yeah, there's a problem there because the level of duplication, the amount of quotation you've done, you can run into some characteristics in the Panda algorithm that will affect your ranking score across your entire site. That's a detailed discussion we don't get time to get into. Kenny, I can tell you where the source link for that is if you want to repeat that post. But that's a complex topic. Yeah. But is there a quality guideline specifically for curated content? No, because they don't separate curated versus non-curated content. There is a same quality guideline for all content, and that deals with the Panda duplicate content scoring process, and then some minor things about that are really part of Penguin in terms of keyword density. If you do abstracting the way we teach, or if you do curation as long as the way almost anybody teaches it, as long as it doesn't quote the original. I don't want to see a pull quote from the original in a curated content post because you run the risk of going too far over the line and getting hit with Panda scoring. But as long as you do that, then you have exactly the same questions about abstracting as you do as full-length content. The related question is, how long does a piece of content have to be to whatever, fill in the blanks? And the answer is, we don't know, but shorter than you think. 50 to 75-word posts are perfect for leading a person to whether or not they actually want to follow the link. If you look at TechMeme, that's TechMeme.com, that is 100% very, very short focus summaries of what they're linking to. That works fine. Now, can you go that far? I wouldn't recommend you go that far. I don't think it has high user engagement unless you're already have that brand reach. But yes, you can make very, very short posts, and they actually have value to your visitors. Does a site need 30 articles or more before Google takes it seriously? Yes and no. Well, I should be no and yes. No, there is no fixed number of pages you need, and yes, guess what? Pages create page rank. If you only have 30 articles, you don't have enough. I mean, it's like pouring a glass of water into the ocean and hoping to see the level rise. You just don't have enough authority. Authority comes from more pages linked together in some reasonably sensible fashion. And so if you only have 30 articles, yes, you will rank for some completely wacko, long tail phrase, but you're not going to actually rank for pretty much anything that has really high value unless it's like completely lucky. So yeah, you need to be thinking about what's your whole content strategy, not whether how many articles do I need. That's not really quite the right view. Are there any duplicate content issues on language translated content? And yes, there are, and Google has specifically spoken on this topic. They've given some guidelines, and in fact, it should be at the very same URL, which we have to get working. And they have a couple of different suggestions. Okay, so in summary, you're okay as long as you are completely above board about it. That's really kind of what it boils down to. There are a couple of corner cases that you have to be concerned about, and so the ones that are actually the most difficult to deal with, unfortunately, are the ones where you're probably your primary market. So if you wanted to address the UK, Australia, and the US simultaneously, that's where you actually have the most problem. because let's face it, we almost talk the same language, not quite. I mean, you guys continue to get it wrong. I don't get it. But anyway, your spelling is weird. I have no understanding of it. But anyway, there should be, like S's where there's C's and stuff like that. It's strange. But so that's actually an issue. If you do it with country domains, that appears to be the one that Google prefers. But I would say that this is a difficult enough area that I would be careful about it. If you can actually make the one site appeal to multiple countries, I still think that is a good idea. What Google recommends, however, is as long as you give them the clues. And so the things they recommend doing literally are using subdomains, using subdirectories, or using query strings, but they recommend that the query string is the last resort. So literally if you do something like en.mysite.com or au.mysite.com, that's fine. And what they're doing is that they're using pattern matching on the domain name to ferret out that, oh, I see what's going on. Yeah, these are the same guys, two different country domains, and they're kind of pulling off the domain name domain name processing, the duplicate content processing on it, right? I mean, that's, reading between the lines in their techno speak on their website, that's got to be what they're doing. And so as long as you're completely above board with it, that's what I'm saying. Don't try to hide it. Don't do mysite.com and make that the American one, and then do myothersite.co.uk and make that identical, but try to hide the relationship. No, it's going exactly the wrong direction. What you want to do is make damn certain that Google understands it's the same company. You are far better off if you are completely above board with that kind of thing than not. In fact, we can talk about, it's not one of the case studies I have in the slide deck, but we have somebody who's actually running, I think it's 480 domains, if memory serves, a little bit less than 500 in the travel area, and he's been having long conversations with Google about exactly what to do and what not to do. And he's fine. They don't have any problem with his domain name strategy. Okay, so hey, the elephant in the room. What do we come to talk about? The word that Kenny doesn't know? All right, well, it's actually it's part of this broader thing about penalties. And so one of the things we did talk about on the phone call was somebody who had been hit by big, negative SEO, somebody who's in a penalty. All of these questions are in the same boat. If you have a penalty, you need to walk back what's happened. You need to go do your own research. You need to assume and believe it that you are responsible, that you did something wrong, because it's very rare that Google gets this wrong now, all right? They're actually pretty smart and have been doing this for a while, and for all of the problems I have with their, some of their issues, they're technically very, very smart. So if you've been hit with a manual penalty, which you'd find out in Webmaster Tools, by the way, you have to have Webmaster Tools in order to have a clue, then by all means, you need to address it, and you need to go do your own link research. We recommend using Majestic, and you need to go through there and try to remove as much as you possibly can, and then do reconsideration requests. You may have to do it several times. We've had clients and coaching clients that we worked through this process with, and some of them it's like 6 and 7 times before it finally got lifted. And the bar is high. You have to you need to remove about 70% of the bad links. And now, depending upon how you've gotten them, you may never be able to do that. If you've done things like automated profile links, where there's a little bot that goes and registers at a forum, creates a profile, puts a link in the profile, and then logs out and doesn't keep the login data, tough. You're screwed. I mean, you'll never be able to get that link removed. And so you can absolutely end up in a situation where you have to start over. And so Dan and I have created a process to do exactly that. We teach a process that you basically block the domain from spidering, and then it's not pretty. It's an ugly process, but it's the only way really to escape that kind of situation. I characterize it like the Russians retreating from the Nazis in World War II. They scorched the earth behind them. It's kind of a bad way to go. But if that's all you got, then that's what you do. So we've also had students and coaching clients switch domains, and there you can't just 301 the old one to the new one because the bad stuff will follow, but there's a process to kind of rebuild under that circumstance as well. So if you really do think that you've been hit by negative stuff, there is a process to go through that before even the next thing, which is the disavow tool. And so let's see, this is for Kenny's benefit. Let's see here, let me look this up. Disavow, to disclaim knowledge of, connection with, or responsibility for, disown, repudiate. He disavowed the remark that had been attributed to him. Now that's what dictionary.com says. But I mean, come on, really, you don't know what disavow means? Have you not seen any spy movies, Kenny? I mean, it's mentioned in every single Mission Impossible. That's the thing. It's like every time they go into something, something screws up, and I'm sorry, the secretary. It's on the tape. If you're caught, the secretary will disavow.
It's just one of those words that's just never registered.
So
I did a few email outs for this webinar.
Yeah.
And I spelt it wrong on both occasions.
Yeah, you think it's a vowel. Yeah, disavowal. Yes, I know. Or disembowel. That would be the other way. Yeah. So what do I think about the disavow tool? All right. So here are the three opinions in the marketplace. I've listened to them all at this point. One of them is mine, so of course I listened to mine. And so the first thing is I'll tell you what the spammers are saying, because I listened to a couple of them last night carry on about this. And sure enough, they're absolutely right. So if you are participating in a blog network and you disavow those links, you will help Google find out that it's a blog network. Well, guess what? They don't really need your help. I'll get to that in a minute. The second opinion, it really comes from our pal Ed Dale, and I think this is one of the few times since, 6 years that I've known him, that I think he got it wrong. But he's calling this the crowdsourcing of spam detection, where he's basically saying the same thing that the first group are saying. It's just that what he's saying is you can accidentally get hit. And so, for example, if like 3 or 4 guys say, oh, no, I'm disavowing that link, it's not a good link, and then some other guy is linked from the same website, that he's going to get hit too. I disagree. That's not how it works. And besides, I got news.
Yeah, he's also... Yeah, sorry, Leslie.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I think there's a time delay there. He's also saying that people could go out there and create a sacrifice site by building all of those links that you have, the exact links that you have, and then putting them into the disavow tool. Now, what my thought on that is, and you might agree on this, is it's hard enough building the links as it is these days. So going out there and building those links just to try and take your competitor down is going to be a big enough job in itself.
Yeah, economically it has no legs at all, right?
No.
And so that's the beginning. And the other thing, it wouldn't work. And so let's talk about, what Google really does, in order to detecting link spam. So, I mean, there's really 2 ways to detect spam. One is with link networks or link topology, and the other one is on-page factors. And so, Google, Matt Cutts and some of the actual technical people. Matt Cutts is an engineer mostly in title, sort of a title honor. It's sort of an honorary engineer. He had an engineering degree, but I mean, he hasn't done it in a while, right? So, but at engineering conferences, they talk a lot about this kind of stuff. And so, the 2 kinds of ways. So, first of all, some of the pages that people publish are just ridiculous. It's amazing. I mean, I'm aghast. Anybody thinks that could ever work, but yet that's the garbage that Matt Cutts and his team and the algorithms they write has to filter through. And so there's literally, they say they discovered 1 trillion new URLs a day. A lot of that's duplication. So maybe it's only 1/3 of a trillion, and something like 80% of that is complete and utter waste. Bear in mind that the web you see is the lily pads floating on the pond scum. Most of the web is spam. Most of the web is too little quality to ever bother to want to show in results. And you can find it by composing long enough queries that Google gets to we got nothing of quality, but we're not going to return a blank page. And so they will always return something. And you will find what the real web looks like if you compose long enough queries. Now, that said, most of the most of what we'll call the evil spammers, right? The people who are actually trying to spam as opposed to just putting up complete garbage, right? The people who are actually trying to get good at it are doing it with linking. And so the origination of this, frankly, was Revenge of the Mini-Nets. Now, before that, there were mini-nets before that, and so the Revenge of the Mini-Nets was about that, right? It was because it was this period of time with, oh, that's not going to work anymore. Well, it's actually working just fine, thank you. We were doing it and making a lot of money at it. Now, not so much. It's too easy. Anything you can draw out on a piece of paper and keep track of yourself is very easy for someone at Google to find out. Well, how do we know this? If you just follow the graduate students through a computer science program and you look at what they're writing about. They're writing about that because they want to get their damn degree approved and then go on and make some money with it. And so, well, how do they get their ideas for what to do their thesis and doctoral dissertations about? They get it from their interns at companies in Silicon Valley. Okay, and who are those people? Well, I mean, you can see where I'm going here, right? And so it's the companies that have demand for those graduates that once they come out of their dissertations that are actually suggesting things to them. And there was and I don't remember when the knee in the curve was, but there was a period of time where everything was about page rank and about authority accumulation and spam detection, that kind of thing, using those kind of tools. And then we had this period of like a couple of dissertation cycles where everything was about link detection algorithms, link topology analysis. And so at this point, they have huge mass of technology available, methods that have already been proven in academic circles. And guess what? At Google, an engineer without any authorization whatever, just from his desktop, he can decide, gee, I wonder if this would be an effective way to detect this kind of case. They're seeing, imagine what happens, right, where somebody flags a website or something hits some filter, and it goes, like a little alarm and say, hey, Bob, take a look at this. And it's like, yeah, that's not a very good looking site. Oh, yeah, I think they may be doing something with their link topology in order to rank. And so, well, how could we figure that out? Well, they just have to come up with an idea to test, and they can spin up 10,000 computers operating on the entire Google index and run that for an afternoon without any authorization at all. They don't have to get anyone to sign off on that. On a whim, they can do a test using 10,000 computers and the entire Google index. So if you can find it, they've already found it long before you. If you can even begin to keep track of the number of domains you have and what links to what, they have already found you. See? And so they don't need to crowdsource. They've already done that. It's just a crowd of machines and a whole bunch of computer science graduates that have algorithms for this. So no, I think that Ed and Dory have it wrong. That no, they don't need disavow. This is actually a gift. This is a gift to you. Now bear in mind that it's also not the disavowing a link is not like a Catholic confession. It's not that suddenly you're blessed and you move on to the afterlife. It's not like that. We don't know exactly what they're going to do with this moving forward, but what we know from what they've already done involving reconsideration requests, we can be certain of one thing, and that is they still hold you to a standard. Just because you know the link is not to be trusted, well, you know what? They probably already know that, and so they still want you to remove stuff. And in his presentation at PubCon, Matt said that. That's the thing to understand. It's just because they've given you this tool doesn't mean that this somehow wipes the slate clean and forgives all sins. You can bet that that's not the case. So when should you do this? We don't really know exactly what the rules ought to be yet. I can tell you that it should not, remove from consideration everything else you need to do a reconsideration request. If you get hit with a manual penalty, you need to go find out where those links are. You need to make every attempt possible to remove those links yourself, and you need to describe in a Google Doc with a spreadsheet to Google during the reconsideration request what you've done. And it better be something, because they're not going to reconsider otherwise, and we've seen time and time and time again this is the case. The other thing you could do simultaneously is start some real marketing, and this is really addressed to the person we were talking about here with the negative SEO. Negative SEO only works at the edge case where you don't have any real SEO. That's the thing. If you have no good links, then bad links will affect you. my partner Dan Thies actually had people do negative SEO on him, and it didn't work. Now, they claim victory because they intentionally misinterpreted the results, but don't get me started on that. The reality is that negative SEO only works in the case where you don't have any good links to balance it out. So if you're in a penalty situation right now, there's two things you can do. Start the reconsideration request right away. Add disavow at some point as soon as we figure out how or what the right place for it is. Add disavow to that process, but also immediately begin real marketing. And that kind of gets us to the one answer to all SEO questions. Because if you look at all of these questions, what do they deal with? They deal with some technical issues, sure. They deal with some problems. They deal with, how to rank and this and that and something or other else. But wait a minute. What are we trying to do here? We're trying to make money online. How do we do that? And that really gets to the new Google and the new, what I'm going to call the new SEO, just for the sake of, because if I say, oh, SEO is dead, that book was written 4 times in the last 12 years, so let's not do that. But my answer to the new SEO is just don't do SEO, do real marketing instead. And I'll explain what that is. That's not a cop-out. The reality is that it's using the one force actually stronger than Google, and that's human genetics. See, marketing as a process is actually wired into our brain. And even Google has to conform. Google cannot somehow run counter to human genetics. The fact is, it's the same people using your site are also using Google. That's how they find you typically. And so, once you understand how marketing works and why that's wired in the human brain, or how it's wired in there and how to really use it, Google just takes care of itself. And so it's what I call the new natural SEO. The new SEO is really that whole quote-unquote natural linking that Google said you wanted. Well, that theory finally actually does work in the modern era because now visitors can create links, and so you don't have geeks voting for each other. As soon as you remove that, as soon as it's no longer geeks in control, this stuff really works. Well, what is this natural SEO? Well, you have to know your market, find your voice, your differentiation in that market, and attract people to engage with you, right? Become actual quote-unquote popular or attractive. Build everything you do for humans, not search robots. Now, how do you make all that work and still make money? You have to be smart rather than hard. That's the thing. You beat your competition, your real competition, not Google. Because ultimately this stuff, you already know how to do this. You just have to think about it in the right way. And everything you know about marketing, everything you need to know about marketing, you can figure out just by dating. All right? So even if you don't make this work for your online business, hopefully you'll find value from this in your social life. So here's Leslie's guide to dating. And not exactly, I won't actually be going into a full presentation about dating during our life. That's a different presentation. So first, you walk into a bar and you find a group of people you might want to engage with. You listen first. You have to figure out what they're talking about. Join the conversation a little at a time and then more and more. Segment your market. That's obviously you know what's going on there. And then you want to track and increase the engagement you're getting. So as you join the conversation, you have to figure out, gee, did that line really work that well? And, gee, we're not really hitting it off. Maybe I need to focus on a different market segment, right? And pretty soon, once you've actually able to engage with the selected audience, and then, you can guide the interaction and then finally become the market leader. Obviously, you know how this applies to dating. Why can't you do this in your own business? Because that's really what you need to do. You need to date your market. You need to find what the conversation is. What are they already talking about? They were there first. All you have to do is show up and join. Now, a lot of people do article marketing. Guess what that is? That's going into the bar, standing up on a bar stool and shouting, hello, no one's listening to you. They don't care. There's no conversation. Join the conversation. And all marketing is ultimately conversation. If you're attractive to your audience, if what you have to say, if your voice is something that they want to listen to and respond to and interact with you about, hey, then you got them. Selling is just pickup. That's all there is to it. Dating and marketing are the same. Well, dating is an application of marketing, and marketing is an application of dating skills, whichever way you want to go there. I don't care. And your voice is your brand. Remember we're talking about how Google doesn't really prefer brands? It's really what they prefer is differentiation. Well, they don't really prefer differentiation either. What they prefer is authority. Well, how do you get authority? Well, one of the ways is links. How do you get links? We'll get to that in a minute. Well, if you are not a brand, then you're by definition just me too. You're just part of the noise. Well, here's the interesting thing about that. I ask people this a lot of time, and I always get the wrong answer, and we won't take time to do an actual survey today, as I'll just jump ahead to the answer. But is more competition better or worse? Right? I mean, Kenny, what do you think? Is more competition in the marketplace better or worse for you?
It's worse.
Well, that's an opinion, but I would disagree. You see, so let's talk about a highly competitive market, like web hosting, for example. What's the one problem in that market? Why is it so competitive?
Because there's so many customers in that market.
No, that's the high demand. That's the high demand, you're right. That's the reason there's so many companies. But in order for a new company to break into that market, why is it so difficult to break into web hosting? I mean, there's lots of competitors, right?
You're going to have to answer this, Leslie, because you caught me off guard there. I'm copying and pasting all these questions that
Okay, that's good. Well, and it's a difficult question, and we're not set up to think about it in these terms. But here's the reason.
But please don't use me as one of your props, Leslie.
But it worked in San Diego. Anyway, all right. So, all right. I'll take you off the hot seat. So the answer is lack of differentiation. That's the problem. You see, competitors, when they all do approximately the same thing, it becomes just noise. And web hosting companies are notorious for just doing exactly the same thing, tracing exactly the same customers with exactly the same message. How many times can you find and evaluate offers for $9.95 hosting, right? That's the problem, is lack of differentiation. So if you can find a way to not be noise, if you can find a differentiated message, see, that's the thing. Now, how does GoDaddy become the single largest registrar in the world, eclipsing by, I don't know what the factor is, every other registrar? Well, pretty different message. Who else has GoDaddy girls, right? And an ex-Marine as their spokesperson, right? So that's differentiation gets you over the noise. So here's the thing. Competitors actually create an opportunity because they tell you what not to do. So if you're different in a good way and can become a trusted resource for people, you can provide real value. And you can do it in a context where the noise actually helps you. Now, that said, I will agree, as Kenny was pointing out, that competitors create lots of search results because there's lots of demand for the services and yada, yada, yada. So ranking is still an issue unless you can change the conversation or change the character of the conversation and get people to actually be talking about something different. Then you're the only one ranking for it. Bingo, case one. But engagement, once you can create differentiation in the marketplace, create a different voice, and start engaging with people in that voice, that's the start of selling. And so you ask yourself, do you have a Twitter following? Right? Do you have a Facebook fan page? If so, how active is it? Do you have a blog? Are you posting to it regularly? And if so, are people following it on RSS, and are they commenting on your posts? All right, those kind of things. We're actually tracking, well, that one got a lot of comments and that one didn't. That must mean that message resonated more than this other one. That's information about the market. That's your guide to dating. That tells you, who to take home. So how much feedback are you getting? That's critical to be looking at these things because all of those engagement metrics that you can track and just how well your marketing is actually working, those are the things that ultimately create links, which is actually the last kind of engagement. That is the very last kind of engagement, not the first one. And you see how backwards that is to the old days? In the old days, you had to get a bunch of geeks to link to you so that you could get found, so that customers could find you, so that you could engage customers. Now, we're turning it all around. It's completely backwards. That old way doesn't work anymore. Now what works is you engage with customers, they link to you. No geeks required. So you look for followers, mentions, and what I call the word of keyboard. It's like the word of mouth, except there are no mouths used. It's all fingers or mobile phones typically. The traffic, subscribers, comments, those are the things that are leading indicators because finally you get that stuff, natural links happen naturally, finally, but only at the end of that process. So what we're recommending now is forget about the loopholes. Look at reality. Here's reality today. Google is not your competition, was never your competition. They're a broker for traffic. They are your friend if you will let them be and behave accordingly. Your competition is your competition. I mean, this is not that hard, right? I mean, you're not selling against Google. You're trying to get Google to notice you as being different and better than the other competition. So real business is about leverage. It's about being better for less money. Now, why would you do this? What did Gretzky say? I don't follow the puck. I go where the puck is going to be. Now, for particularly in this crowd, let's see, I would say, normally I would say soccer, but now I'll say football. I coached my son's football. I said football, but yeah, soccer team, soccer/football. And the way it started out, little kids, is what they call it's called kick and chase because that's what they do. But they use short side teams, so it's on 3-on-3 initially in order to try to get that, and then they work up to like 6x6 because you have to just throw 6, 5-year-olds on the field. You know what's going to happen. They're going to look completely silly. And sure enough, even in a 3x3 team, what you get is all three of them following the ball around. They don't know how to play position and pass, right? And so that kick and chase is exactly what they're doing. They're not actually doing football. When you look at football, they play, they have position and strategy and their positioning. They talk about positioning, right, not chasing. Unfortunately, on the web, adults appear to be better at soccer and football than they are at the web because they chase. So they chase algorithm changes. They chase opportunities. They chase the newest, silver bullet. It's a whole bunch of chasing instead of positioning. If you position right, you don't need to chase. And positioning right is to realize where Google is and where they're going, and we'll talk about that in a little bit in terms of the next 12 months, and just make your business accommodate that in the best way possible. Because ultimately, natural is as natural does. If you want to have quote-unquote natural links, then you've got to act natural. You've got to get those naturally. And so always, always, always build your business for humans first and accommodate technology. Only accommodate it because the new SEO is almost not doing SEO. The things we've already talked about, all right? Do not repeat your keywords in the copy. If you read it out loud as if you were talking to a human and it sounds weird, it's probably because you need to use some pronouns instead of keywords. Do not optimize your internal links. You've got to be very, very, very careful about it. If you're thinking about search when you're creating link text, you are very, very close to running afoul of a penalty. Do not build links. So don't have a link building campaign ever again. You should have marketing and you should have some outreach and some other things like that, which we'll talk about, but we don't even use the terminology link building anymore because it's too dangerous. It's too dangerous because it's a slippery slope. As soon as you say build links, people start doing a bunch of things they really should not do, including requesting anchor text. So you see, marketing is the doing part. SEO is the not doing part. You should know your customer, be a brand, attract an audience of people, who will ultimately link to you, by the way, but engage with that market, which is the beginning of selling, because you realize you're supposed to make money at this, remember. And then, in order to make that work and make money, you just have to be better than the rest of the people who are doing it. And guess what? That currently is a very low standard. Most people are still trying to chase the game. They're trying to chase the current loophole. And if you differentiate yourself, not just in your market, but in how you address your market, ranking right now is easy. It's just hard because people are doing it the old way. And really, the one answer, and we'll talk about this in a minute, but don't jump forward too much, but we teach how to do this. And we call it link liberation because it liberates you from having to think about linking. And it's a 12-week plan to do that. But, here's the problem. So people still want to talk about linking. They still want to think about the SEO. And if you're thinking about the link and thinking about SEO, you're not thinking about marketing. And so we want to actually liberate you from thinking about linking by teaching you how to market the right way. And so if I only had one, two, and these are the two big questions, because they really relate to what to do next, right? I hope that what I've done so far is to just take away a whole bunch of things from you in terms of what's important and what you should not be doing, and answer why those are even questions and why they're causing problems. Because that's where most of these questions are asking about problems, things that, frankly, people have gotten themselves in the wrong place or going down the wrong path. Now let's talk about the future. Let's talk about what to do instead. Replace all that stuff that you shouldn't be doing. What should you be doing? What actually does work today? What can I show is proven to be working today and is future-proof for tomorrow? So the first thing is, if I only had one tool for SEO, what would it be? And I love this question because depending upon who's asking it, it could mean a whole bunch of different things. It could be, what's a piece of technology, and actually the way this was worded was what tool or method. And so what was the one thing that I would want to have if I couldn't have anything else? What would it be? Google Analytics. I cannot live without Google Analytics. I would have to have an analytics package that did at least that much or more. Now, the reality is I'd like to have the one that does even more than that, that it can do multi-click attribution, but that's kind of a really expensive solution, and I don't need that typically. For some client work, it's been very effective, very important, but I cannot live without analytics. If you're not watching analytics carefully and not using the information it provides, you're not doing what I consider SEO. You're not doing a good job of following your market. All right, so I would have to have that. Now, the other things would be, the second things I'd want to have WordPress because it sure makes it easy to build a website, and it makes it easy to connect tools to it. And I have some tools of my own, which would be next on the list, in order to make it more efficient for me to build large quantity of highly performing content. And so, but the very first thing I'd have to have is I'd have to have the ability to track and measure my marketing effectiveness. And that's what analytics does for me. Would I use any automated tools? Yes, but I would I never do automated content. I only automate my business processes. So where do I see SEO in a year's time? It's a great question. Because if you're not asking this, if you don't know the answer to this, then you ought to be asking. Because where you are right now, you need to be thinking where Google is going, where your marketplace is going, so that you're doing the right things today to make the best use of that. So yeah, where is Google going? More of the same. They're going to continue. Do I have a slide for this? Let me see here. No, I don't. So actually, some case studies that actually show it. In fact, we'll jump to that in just a minute. Oh, that's right. I do have it. Oh, I did it first. Okay, sorry. Got lost in my own slide deck. I apologize. So where the future is a reflection of the past, a reflection of the present and the past. So how did we get here, right? That's the first question. In order to know where we're going to be in a year's time, how did we get here? We got here because spam got too much. Google was forced to get here. The quality of results went into the toilet because they started searching more and more of the web. There's also so much opportunity now compared to any time in the past that more and more people are trying harder and harder for those top results. And so Google had an accelerating problem which they had to fix, and so they did it with filters. But let's look at the things that have happened even in the last year and a half. I'll show case studies of what has worked, and then we'll use that as a jumping off point to figure out what a year from now is going to look like as well. And so here's a first real case study, and this is Nick the Newbie Lemons. That's his last name. And so in the spring of 2011, he had no job, a brand new baby, and over the summer he built his first website so he could be a stay-at-home dad. Sometime around August, I think it was, he had 29 visitors his first month, and he figured out that actually about half of that was his family. So not a real good start. And then whether or not this was a reasonable thing, I'm not sure his certified financial planner would have told him to do this if he'd asked, but he spent $2,500 on our Link Liberation 2 product in November, that's quite a leap of faith, although that puts him in it turns out it was a great purchase on his part, but he quadrupled his traffic in the first month of using it, which, as he points out, quadrupling 29 is still not very good. But a year later, he had 10,700 visitors to his website in the first 9 months, more or less, of being online, after Link Liberation 2 at least. He had replaced his former professional income. He's a career counselor kind of a guy. And then by this time, he's actually doubled it. And he's also, because of his outreach on the web, because of his presence on the web, he's now a newspaper columnist in a local newspaper, and he's a published author. And here at only about 15 years, because literally, he admits this himself, he didn't know anything about SEO when he first started back in 2010, and now he actually does SEO consultant. One of his clients is a bank. He lives in near London, actually. Michael, who actually lives in the Midwest in the U.S., a young guy, he and his brothers did six figures online in sales, in 2011. They'd actually been dabbling since 2009 when they joined Dan and me at the SEO Brain Trust. But then in the first half of 2012, which is actually their slow season, they're up 3 times year over year. And just their traffic graph and some other engagement metrics that we teach them to track, they're showing a 500 to 700% growth in the busy part of the year, which actually I think is just about to end, and so we'll have to update this once we talk to them another month or so. Interesting about that is because of the way they're doing quote-unquote link building using a very content-centric approach, their AdSense actually pays for all of their link building, plus they're getting about $3,000 a month in referral sales from those link building sites. Now, these link building sites are not, don't think blog network. What they are is they're destination sites, and there are several of them. There are only like 3 or 4 active ones that are about particular sub-niches or characteristics of their marketplace, which he's asked us not to share because it's highly competitive. Very, very big box retailers are, the people he's selling against. But because of the way he's actually structured this, creating new content is actually a profit center, not a cost. And so as he improves his rankings using content, he's also adding to his a secondary income stream through advertising on those content sites. Perfectly legitimate, is completely 100% disclosed to Google, the commonality ownership, and it's fine. I mean, all he's done is he's separated an information website from an e-commerce site and connect them together with the equivalent of a paid ad, which is completely above board. Becky is an SEO professional. When she saw the end of 2011, she was coming to this conclusion that maybe 2012 would be the end of her business. Because all of the things that she was doing with all of the classic things almost everybody doing SEO knew how to do, and that was like quote-unquote link building. And so she really thought, because SEO was going to be ruled as illegal almost, in 2012 with all the Panda and Penguin changes, she went searching for the answer, found us, and actually rolled out to her clients a completely new content-centric strategy. She's kept all 24 of her clients. All of them are growing. And really one of the processes from link liberation, thing we call abstracting, is the foundation of her offering to clients now. It also happens that she didn't do this on a whim. She actually had 2 websites in the same market, both of them hit by the same penalty on the same day. It's fantastic and rare as hell when you can have that, when you have a real twin test. Because what she did, unbeknownst to us until after it was done, she started doing abstracting on one of them and not the other one. She let the other one languish, and sure enough, it continues to decline, and the other one doubled its traffic back to basically former levels, pre-penalty levels, without her even doing a reconsideration request. And so literally, the link profile is not what it should be, but by doing abstracting, it was able to recover sufficiently by increasing the quality score in other categories, so that it overcame the negative impact of the penalty. There's what we call a twin test, and it's actually like the only really good one we've got. We've got some others, but they're more arguable. This one was perfect. It was based on that. She said, okay, hell, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to do this for all of my clients. The 3 case studies I showed were in 2011 and 2012. Now think about it. That is the most tumultuous time in the history of Google, right? We have not seen that much upset in search since Alta Vista quit being a search engine. I mean, literally, this is true, right? So what can we say about the future? Well, we can say that there's going to be more of it. It's going to be more of the same. Now, we're not going to see this much upset ever again, I don't believe. Ever is a long time. But we are going to see the strengthening of those filters. We're going to see more and more. What's going to happen is those filters are going to get pickier about what constitutes high-quality content, what constitutes bad linking. It's going to become impossible to track rankings. Now, we already talked about this a little bit about why I don't use rank checking tools. The amount of personalization and geo-targeting will continue to increase. And so I just don't really think that we're going to be, quote-unquote, track ranking. I don't think it's going to mean anything a year from now, frankly. I just don't. We'll see. Maybe I'm a little ahead of the curve. Maybe it should be 5 years rather than a year. Prognosticating the future is kind of, weak business. So you're going to see a continued blurring of social and search. I mean, they have collided there more and one and the same. But all of that negative news baked in, there is even more opportunity. And the more opportunity is in 2 dimensions. 1 or maybe 3. One is there's more and more e-commerce being done on it. There's more and more commerce shifting to the online sphere. And so if you haven't started a web business yet, there will not ever be a better time. Second thing is there will be more and more opportunity for somebody who's, quote, doing it right, unquote, because they could, as Google continues to tighten the filters, they're going to make the loophole smaller and smaller and smaller until at some point almost nobody is playing that game. So if you get in now and do it the right way, you'll either fix the penalty you already have or get started on the right track or whatever. The point is that you are way ahead of the game by doing so now, and you're going to be even in better shape a year from now. And then finally, people continue to do this wrong and continue to keep falling for the old story. I mean, you can still go out there and look up link building or blog network or any of the other things that don't work, and they're still selling it. And that's still going to be a case a year from now, which means more and more and more people will have made the mistake and need help. And so if you're doing consulting, like a lot of the folks in our community are, now is the time to be doing it the right way. And so that's why we have Link Liberation Pro. And here I'll actually tell you what all this is about. And if you want to make use of it, great. If not, I hope you've gotten a lot out of this. I hope I've given you, the answers to your question and also showed you the right path. But Link Liberation Pro does exactly what I said the right way to do marketing is. It's the reason we built it. It's 12 weeks of video instruction, and it'll take you from nowhere to expert. I mean, so wherever you are right now, we'll tell you what bad habits you need to throw away and get installed the correct habits. You'll get 12 months of updates because, again, we do update this on a routine basis. Somebody changes, like, let's see, the Twitter API went away, so we had to go change our process for that. You get lifetime access to Link Liberation 3. There's Q&A on all videos, an active community of peers, prior, students. The people of, Nick and Becky and Michael, for example, are in there, as well as a whole bunch of, Phil and Corey, and the list goes on of people who are just like stars in our community. This is the third complete rewrite of this course. I mean, since we actually started counting them. So it has the best of stuff that we released in 2010 when Nick Lemons came in for the first time into our community. Plus, it's got the cutting edge stuff that's really only literally just a few months old. It's all tested and verified by our top students. They're all using it and have been for a couple of years. The ones in the current iteration, there have been people using it from Link Liberation 1 days, which was in 2009, and those people are actually still in our community. It's been proven post-Panda, and Panda and Penguin. I mean, there's not any question that these work. The people who I just told you about were building their businesses, growing their business, fixing businesses during the entire period when everybody else was being wiped out by black and white animals. So this is for you if you want to start a business right or fix one in trouble. As I said, Becky didn't even do a reconsideration because she was intentionally testing it, and she was able to recover from a penalty. Now, depending on the penalty, that may or may not work, but in that particular case, it did. So even if that doesn't work, then simultaneously going through the reconsideration request according to our instructions, you absolutely can fix it. We've had several people do exactly that. You can multiply an existing business. You can go out and sell your services. I mean, we've got lots and lots of people doing exactly that, as Becky is only one of them. You can grow, your existing business, or you can grow another company for a fee. So like Michael is actually growing his own business, and Becky is growing businesses for others. Rinse and repeat. I mean, I don't know. I mean, Phil Weaver, which we didn't talk about on this call, has about 8 different businesses that he runs, and they're completely on autopilot. He has other people doing all of the content. He set up the processes, and they just run themselves while he figures out what to do next. Right now, he's working on a national nonprofit because that's what he really wants to do, and his businesses run themselves. Real marketing is always going to work, and this is real marketing. It just happens to use the technical infrastructure of the web to do it. So what it's not for is tricking Google. It's also not for running 100 websites. It's also not for the quick flip. Now, if you want to build a website up and sell it, absolutely. It has real asset value, and I highly recommend the people ultimately think about their exit strategy. But if you're looking to flip a bunch of websites on a monthly basis, this is not really the approach. This is for building a real long-term business. So it's Panda proven. You have 12 months of update, lifetime access. It's a lifetime marketing skill. Like I said, this is never going to go away. There's no point in the future of Google that marketing doesn't work. And if you really don't want it, you can actually get out of it within 30 days, which gets you all the way through week 4 of the training. The only caveat here is it's not currently available. At $12.95 when it goes to go to the public, That'll be a great price. There's no doubt about that. It's a fantastic value. Ask any of our students, they would tell you that would be a fantastic value. Many of them came in at Link Liberation 2, which was twice that. However, it's not currently available, and Kenny is has been one of our best partners in the past. Was not able to participate in the Link Liberation 3 launch because I think he was like selling a business or something like that. So we do have a special offer that Kenny has asked me to make, and so we'd have a 60% discount on Link Liberation 3 Pro. Now, there's nothing held back. It is actually the full course. It's not a reduced version or light or anything like that. It's actually the whole damn thing. It's just flat out reduce the price. That's all I did. And it's got everything else, including the 30-day, zero risk, money back guarantee, no questions asked. Well, we'll probably ask you a question, but we still give you your money back. We just want to know why. And so, if that's something that will be of interest to you, by all means, there's a link on the screen. You can go get it. And it's only going to be available a few days. I mean, this is one of those things we opened just for Kenny. And, again, Kenny and I have known each other a long time. He's been a great partner and a great friend. We've done lots of. Should I talk about the amount of drinking we've done? Probably not.
Yes. Yes. The link, by the way, guys, I've just put it into the chat. It's a silly link actually. It's seobt.co/Kenny3 and then O.
Letter O.
O. Small letter O.
Yeah, it's a tricky link. I didn't want to make it easy because we only really want people who are willing to take action and take it up a notch. And getting a link right's a good start. Come on.
Exactly. Well, I put it in the chat box anyway. So.
And I bet that in that last hour and a half, I've sparked even more questions. And so I'm here for the duration. However long that your folks actually want to hang on and ask me questions, I'll be willing to do that. And we probably need to. I mean, if you want to. Do a later question and answer thing or do it via podcast, something I'm willing to do that. But I turned it over to you, Kenny.
Yeah, okay.